Hello and welcome to the Bowler CBT Labs Security Series. My name is Matt Bowler and I'll be walking you through basic Telnet security features on this first lab. In my home I currently have two Cisco 2950 series switches. We've got switch A and switch B. This model is purely for visual purposes. This is not functional. I just want to show the audience that we've got switched virtual interfaces set up on each one of these switches in the major subnet of 192.168.1.0 network. Switch A is assigned the IP address of 254 in the last octet, and switch B is 253. These are set up purely for management purposes so that I can telnet into the switches and have access to them remotely. My laptop is currently assigned an IP address within that subnet on the .100. Switch A is currently booting up. We'll see if there's reachability to it before we try and get in. And it looks like it has booted up. So we'll bring up a Telnet client here and launch a session. As you can see, there's no authentication for accessing the switch via Telnet right now, but I do have an enable password set up for the switch, and it's just set to Cisco. That's going to be a common password for all future labs. It's just Cisco and all lowercase. You can use enable secret as well, and that's definitely recommended over just enable password, because the password is clear text. The secret is at least it's encrypted. There are ways to get that, but ideally you have your switch locked down so someone who is not authorized to view the config can see it. And there's ways of encrypting your actual configuration that's sent remotely via SSH. We are just using Telnet right now. I will cover SSH in a later lab, but right now we're just going to approach this from a very basic sense and look at it through Telnet. All the way down at the bottom of the running configuration, you're going to see the 16 virtual teletype lines. That's the Telnet lines. They currently do not have a login set up, as I mentioned before, so I'm able to just hook it up, send a connection request, and it lets me in without any sort of prompt of a password or username. So to go ahead and configure just a basic password, I'm going to get into line B2I04. This just I set up. I don't expect in my home lab to have more than 5 simultaneous connections, because there's just one of me here. So to enable a login and a password, I'm going to go ahead and type in login, and you can see that the login is currently disabled until I set a password. So if I were to back out of this switch and try and get back in, it's not going to let me back in because the password is not set. So definitely don't want to try that. So I'll set the password again to Cisco, all lowercase, and I'll back out, exit out of that. I'm going to bring up another prompt here, Telnet in, and you can see it's asking me for a password. So I'll go ahead and enter the password and end the switch. It's just that simple. Again, this is going to show up in the configuration clear text. So you're going to need to enable encryption on the switch, which is going to cover up and encrypt all those clear text passwords. Before we take a look at that, though, I'm going to go ahead and show you a message of the day banner, which is something you should always have. You don't want to have a device that when you log into it, it just lets you right in without any sort of acknowledgement or warning that if you're not authorized to use this device, you shouldn't be accessing it. I don't know how much truth there is to the stories, but I've heard of cases where a hacker can get into a system and they end up breaking in and it's malicious activity. The company tries to persecute the person, and their lawyers basically say, well, you know, the hacker was greeted with a welcome message or something along those lines. So, like I said, don't know how true that is, but you don't want to welcome someone in. You want to require authorized personnel only, and even then they should know the procedures, and they should know where and when they should be able to access a device.